So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our developer workshop series, the first one of the new year, our first workshop of 2024. Today, we'll be going over the Video SDK API library, what it is and how to use it. So I'll just quickly introduce myself and then I'll pass it over to Kelly so he can do the same. My name is Rahima. I'm a developer advocate engineer developer advocate engineer here at Zoom, working primarily with the Video SDK, creating content to help you all understand how to use it and what you can build with it. So Kelly, I'll pass it over to you if you want to introduce yourself as well.
Well, I mean, since you asked, I guess I might as well. But I'm Kelly Andrews. I'm a senior developer advocate and loving everything about the Video SDK that we've been teaching everybody and learning about ourselves. And super stoked to see what everything comes out today and what questions you might have. And looking forward to walking you through everything. So.
Yes. So like Kelly mentioned, ask any questions you have in the chat. Feel free to raise your hand if you want to ask by coming off of mute. But this is interactive. This is live for you all to ask questions and work with us as we go through. So I do just want to mention as well, in addition to this being live, we do have this recorded. So you will be able to go back and watch this workshop. You can go back and watch our past workshops as well. I'll be mentioning some of those throughout this current workshop. So feel free to find our YouTube channel. We'll also have it linked, but you can look at our developers YouTube channel and see some past workshop where we've gone over some different getting started topics for the Video SDK. But today we're going to do an overview of the Video SDK API library. So what it is, where to find access to it, how to use it. Then we're going to dive into how you gain access to the API endpoints and how you can use credentials to therefore use and make calls to the endpoints. We'll look at app integration, so what it looks like to make an endpoint call within your application. We'll walk through some sample code, and then we're going to go over some sample use cases. So I will review one sample use case, and then I'm going to pass it to Kelly, who's going to do a live Postman demo, and you'll have the chance to walk through. If you have Postman, open it up and walk through as well and utilize some of those SDK endpoints and see how they work. So that's our agenda for today. And then we're going to look at our two objectives for this workshop. The first is for you to leave with an understanding of the Video SDK API and how to integrate it into your own applications. The next is going to be to have firsthand experience working with the Video SDK API library in Postman, either by watching or if you have Postman loaded on your system by going through and working alongside Kelly as he demos some of these endpoints. All right. And again, I do want to say, if you have questions, feel free to ask throughout. If I don't see them, Kelly will stop me and bring them to my attention. Or if you ask in chat, someone will go ahead and answer that for you. So we're going to start off by looking at the Video SDK API library and what it is. So the Video SDK is a part of the platform that has its own API library specifically for working with sessions. Now, the Video SDK only creates and initializes sessions, not meetings or webinars. So that's why these endpoints are session specific. Now, you gain access with credentials that you can find on marketplace.zoom. We'll go over that next. And you use your JWT or JOT token to access the API endpoints. The Video SDK API library allows you to access session and user information or data. So you can access things like session statistics to see how your session ran. You can look at user information to see who attended a session and so on and so forth. And like I mentioned, we are going to go over some sample use cases towards the end of this workshop. So we'll look more at what you can gain access to. So now we're going to look at some high-level differences between the Meeting SDK and the Video SDK. So if you're familiar with the Meeting SDK and you've used the Meeting SDK API endpoints within your application, we do want to point out that it's a little bit different when working with the Video SDK. With the Meeting SDK on the left side, you'll use OAuth for authorizing your endpoint calls. This also, the Meeting SDK also allows access to Zoom One API endpoints. So the platform as a whole, the endpoints, phone endpoints, chat endpoints, chatbot endpoints, you can gain access with the Meeting SDK. You can also gain access to endpoints for meetings and for webinars. So both meetings and webinars. Now, when we look at the Video SDK on the right side, we're going to see that this uses a generated JOT token for authorization. So unlike the Meeting SDK, you're not using OAuth, you're using a JOT token that'll be inputted within your call. Now, the Video SDK.
Rahima,
Yeah.
real quick. So Eva can was asking about the Jot being deprecated. So now might be a good time just to chat about just quickly the two different accounts to make sure everybody's on top of that.
That's a really good question. So I see you said, oh, okay, there is OAuth. Yeah, so evic OAuth is for meeting SDK. Jot was deprecated on that end, but with the video SDK, we are still using the Jot token to make those API calls. So separate parts of the platform, that could be a bit more specific, but essentially the Jot authorization token is still used for video SDK and video SDK only. And there was deprecation happening with the meeting SDK part of the platform. Perfect. I hope that answers your question. If not, feel free to let us know. All right, so continuing on with some of those differences, Video SDK works with the Video SDK API library, which you can find linked in our documentation. And it also works with the account settings API library. So some of the endpoints in the account settings API library are going to allow you to update and access account information and make updates to those as well. Now, the endpoints for the Video SDK are for sessions only. You'll notice that when we look at the Video SDK API reference page, you're going to see get session, list session users. This is for sessions only. And again, this is because the Video SDK is working with sessions. So we're initializing and joining sessions, unlike with the Meeting SDK, where we are working with meetings and webinars. So that's a high-level view of some of the differences when working with these two separate parts of the platforms. I'll pause for a few seconds, see if we have any other questions. That was a really good question about the Jot deprecation, but we'll just pause here and see if we have any more. All right, we look good to go. So now we're going to look at what it takes to get your credentials to access the Video SDK API library. So the Video SDK requires its own separate account. And we do have a workshop where we've gone over what it takes to create a Video SDK account. So this is an account that is completely separate from your standard Zoom account. It's one that is a paid subscription for use. And you want to make sure you have that account first set up. You're subscribed to what you need. You have your plan going, you're subscribed, and you are logged into that account on marketplace.zoom.us. So once you have all that going, you're going to go to marketplace.zoom.us. There's a drop down on the top right side, and then you're going to select develop. So I'll quickly just show us what that looks like. All right, so you all should see my screen, my marketplace.zoom.us site, and we're going to see develop. I do not have the correct drop-down menu here because I'm logged into the wrong account. So what I'm going to do is sign out. And now I'm going to click sign in. And I want to sign in with my Video SDK specific account. From there, now I can click develop and build Video SDK. So now I'm going to pause and jump back into the presentation because we have a screenshot of what we need next. All right, so back inside our presentation, we're going to see that page that we're brought to once we click develop is going to be our SDK credentials. So we're going to have first the SDK credentials, but then we're going to have our API keys as well right underneath. So our API keys are what we're going to use to generate our Jot token. And we use that Jot token within our application to authorize our API endpoint call. So we'll see the credentials listed here. And if you wanted to manually generate your Jot token, you're going to follow some function or some code that we actually have written in our documentation. And we also have a previous workshop that goes over Jot generation. So I'm going to quickly preview what that looks like. And then we'll jump into bringing that Jot token into your application. Okay, that's running a little slow to make sure we are using our time efficiently. If actually, Kelly, would you find that Jot generation code within our authorization page? And Kelly will drop the link just because my computer's running slow. We want to make sure we get through everything.
Absolutely. 1 second.
Yep, no problem. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and resume sharing. And then I see we have another question actually in the chat, so I'll address this quickly. Does this utilize master APIs also for master or sub accounts? In terms of utilizing the master APIs, I will have to look more into this, Evic, to make sure I'm understanding your question correctly. The Video SDK can be created as a sub account under a master account. And if I'm understanding you correctly, even if it's created under a master account, you're still only gaining access to the Video SDK API library and the account settings API. So I hope that answers your question correctly. Video SDK can be created under a master account, but you still only have access to the appropriate API library. So video SDK and account settings. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and continue with our presentation. Again, Kelly's going to drop that page to see what it looks like if you want to authorize.
What was the page you were wanting again? One more quick.
So we're looking for the JOT authorization. So within it's going to show you how to that code for generating your JOT token.
Oh yeah, I got it. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
there's 2 pages, and I wanted to verify I had the right one. Okay, I got it now.
All right, so we'll see what that looks like. But before we jump into using our JOT token within our app, we're going to first make sure we can find the endpoint that we need. So when you want to locate the endpoint that you need, you're going to look inside the Video SDK API reference page, and that is going to be linked for you in our resources tab. So once you're on the reference page for the Video SDK API library, you can look on the left side, and you're going to see something that looks like this screenshot here. We have a sidebar that has section headers, and it also has a filter feature, so you can find the endpoint that you need for your use case. So if you were to type in recording in your filter, you're going to get endpoints that fall under cloud recording. You'll also see it sectioned off. We have cloud recordings, then we have sessions. We also have a few more different headings on the actual page, but you can use the left toolbar or scroll bar to easily find the endpoints that you need. And once you click on the endpoint, you're going to see more information about this endpoint. So what it does and what query parameters are needed, if any, and these query parameters allow you to specify the type of data that you want to receive. So I'm going to pause quickly and just show us a brief overview of what that page looks like. So here we're going to see our API reference page. This is where we are here. I see that scroll bar on the left side. And this endpoint is going to be get session details. And I'm going to see the object that it returns. I'm going to see some query string parameters and some path parameters. So I can add these in and specify these to get the exact kind of data that I want to be looking for. All right, so we'll jump back into our presentation. Give us a few seconds if anyone has any questions. Are there limits on how far back we can get data? I do not believe so, Evik. I will double check that as well to get an accurate answer, but I don't believe there's a limit on how far back you can retrieve data. And if I'm incorrect about that, we'll send out some documentation to clarify.
Yeah, I'll look around at the API specs and see if I can find a couple of pieces that might help. 6 months from date of query.
Thanks, Gianni.
The standard on all data then is 6 months. Perfect. Excellent.
Yeah, I believe so.
All right, perfect. So Evik, it is 6 months from date of query. So now we're going to look at creating your API call. We have a screenshot of what some code looks like. So this is from an application that I built. This is on the server side of my application. I am making a call to an API endpoint. So the first thing we're going to notice here is that we have our session, our endpoint customized. So we've created our URL that we'll be using for our endpoint, and we've added in our path parameters. So we're going to see that we're specifying the type of sessions we want to look at, which are past sessions. So using the type keyword, we set it to past. Additionally, we're looking at data that's coming from May 23rd to June 15th. Now I specified that following this specific format. We have year, month, date, and year, month, date. We have our from keyword beginning and our to keyword for the end of the range of data. Then we're going to see that we're specifying the type of request we're making. So this is a GET request. And we also saw on that side toolbar that each endpoint is specified already for us. So we'll see if it's a GET, patch, put, what kind of request that we're making. So the next thing we're going to see as we are building out our endpoint call is going to be within our headers, in our headers key, we're going to have the authorization object. Now, what we're going to add for authorization is going to be a bearer token. Now, our bearer token is where we're going to drop in that JOT token that we have. So we went over how you can manually create your JOT token. Kelly dropped in some documentation for how to do that. And like I mentioned, we do have a workshop that goes over what it takes to manually generate your JOT token. But I'm going to go over what we can do to easily get that JOT token and use it within our application. So we're going to do a quick pause again, and I'm going to hop back over to the marketplace site.
Also, ignore the first jot creation. That was the jot creation for sessions. Not going to help you in this case. Totally different one. Deleted that one. Put the right one in there. I do that all the time. I always forget to go to the right one. So make sure you go to the right link. So.
Okay, perfect. So we have that correct link just sent by Kelly.
Yep.
And on this page, we are going to see, so I'm on marketplace.zoom. I used my dropdown, build video SDK. It brought me to this page. Again, we see our API credentials, API key, API secret. Now we could use these and copy them into our application to generate a JOT token. But we also see in this dropdown view JOT token that we have an auto-generated JOT token here for us. Now you can set your expiration time for this JOT token. We have 90 minutes, 1 day, 1 week, or other. If you click other, you can customize your own expiration date. Now, the shorter the expiration date, generally the more secure your JOT token is. So we don't want to, usually we don't want to extend past the 90 minutes, but if you need to, go ahead. I know in the past, if I've been doing a demo and I've been repeatedly using the JOT token, I'll set the expiration to, once that demonstration or once that demo is over for ease of use. So if I wanted to use this within my application, I would copy it just like that, and then I could pull it into my code. So here, we're going to go back to our authorization space. And right where I have this dynamic input of my bearer token, which was created up here, that would be my JOT token. So again, we used for us to authorize the call to the API endpoint, we have our header. Inside of this object, we have authorization, and we are dropping in a bearer token with the keyword bearer, and then we're going to put in that API JOT token. All right, so again, this is what it looks like within an application. I'll just do a high-level overview of some more of the code. This is, I'm using a backend library to make that API call, or to make an API call. Then I've created a function that's going to go ahead and run through and make that call with my URL. My URL is customized. I have my base URL at the beginning, so that's https://api.zoom.us/v2/video SDK. I'm specifying that I'm working with sessions, and then I've customized from there, denoting the type of sessions that I want to look at, so past versus live, and then denoting the time range from where I want to look. So from May 23rd to June 15th of last year. So I'll just pause here if we have any questions. We've had really good questions so far. So we know that there's a limit on data. It goes back to 6 months, like with the Meeting SDK API library or the REST API library. We also looked at the JOT deprecation and saw that that's only for the Meeting SDK use and not for Video SDK. They are separate. So if we have any other questions, feel free to ask now before we go ahead and move on from here. All right, so we are going to continue on. So we're going to take a moment and just briefly highlight the Video SDK QSS, because this is a newer feature that we've made available. So QSS stands for Quality of Service Subscription, and it's an add-on feature you can add to your Video SDK library. So how to add on different subscriptions is shown in our workshop that reviews setting up a Video SDK account. But again, this is something that you would add on. It does not come automatically with your Video SDK account. Using Quality of Subscription Service, or QSS, you can use 2 different endpoints to get different pieces of data that show connection quality for sending or receiving video, audio, or shared content. Now, this will only return data if you've shared something. So if you haven't sent video or you haven't sent audio, then there's going to be blank data shown. But if you have, it is going to give data on how that quality, the connection quality for those different things. Now, again, this is a newer feature that we've made available for the Video SDK, and it's really useful for live troubleshooting or troubleshooting of past sessions. It makes it easy to quickly locate what may be going wrong within those different pieces of data being sent. All right, so we looked at QSS, we looked at how to pull in and integrate that API endpoints into your own application. Now we're gonna quickly begin to go over some different use cases, sample use cases that can be accomplished by using the Video SDK API library. it's a mouthful. So one's going to be tracking session attendance. So we'll look at this more in depth when we go to our demo. But just I want you to quickly think, if you create an application and you were using that, let's say you had an online tutoring service, and you needed to make sure that everyone who was supposed to attended the session. You could use the list session users endpoint, and then you'll get a return object that includes session users. Within your URL that you're making the endpoint call to, you could add in your session ID to specify the session you want to look at. You'd add that to path parameters. And you can also select that date range. So if you wanted to look at, let's say, your sessions for the past week, you can select the beginning and the end date range within your query parameters. You would get a return object that tells you the username of who attended, their time of arrival, and some more important pieces of information that could help you track attendance for your virtual tutoring platform. So that's just one example use case. We're going to take a quick moment before we go into our demo. And in our demo, we're going to go over a few more use cases and what you can accomplish with the Video SDK API library. So I'm going to pass it to Kelly, and we'll take a quick minute before we get started with this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rahima, for all of that awesome, amazing information and really, really good stuff. So, okay, so we're going to go through Postman. All right, so now we have my web browser and my app marketplace and everything else I need to sort of get working on the API. And what we want to have you do today is, if you don't have Postman downloaded as an app, you can use it directly in the browser as well. If you do have it downloaded as an app, great, fire it up. If you don't have it and want to download it, you can do that next. We're going to take a quick 5-10 minute break just to give everybody a chance to stand up and relax before we finish up. But I'm going to show you kind of all the steps you need to go through just to get it set up. If you haven't done that before and this is new, then you can follow along. Okay, so Postman, if you're familiar, you'll know how powerful of a tool it's become. For those of you who this is might be new to you, welcome to Postman. This tool is really amazing. What it does is allow me to write all kinds of API calls that will work directly from the Postman application, create collections, environment variables, be able to run testing against local hosts, all kinds of stuff. To just API driven testing kind of application that's just great to work with and really fun. So we have a public workspace that allows you to hop in and see our APIs across the board to actually start using them right away, right? So you can sign up for free, which I've done. I actually can sign in. So I'm going to do that with Google, and I'll use my, it's actually on my personal email. I can do that real quick. Okay, so once I get logged in, now what I can actually do here is I can fork these into my account. And since I've already signed up and downloaded the one here, you'll actually see kind of how the magic works. So if I do fork on the Video SDK API, do create fork. And I'll just name this KJA demo. And it's going to go into this particular workspace up here. When you start, you'll have one workspace called My Workspace. It's sort of the generic one. I just made a custom one. You don't have to do that. You can just use the default one there. So I'm going to fork this collection now. And now it's over in my app here. It also shows up in my browser. It shows me the sessions, reports, list recordings of an account, those sorts of things that allow me to actually start to work with the API. So that's the just the API there. And then you can also go back and add the Zoom meeting API and the accounts one here. You won't need much of that, but I will show you what you can use. So And then just do the same thing there. Just go in, it's the top one here, fork this one. Same way. Should show up right here. Oh, done. All right, so that's it. And then when we get back, we'll go through the rest of this. Just get yourself an account if you don't have one, or get signed in and ready to go. And then we can start playing around with some API calls. So one thing I didn't cover before the break, but now that you have hopefully Postman all set up, is there are a series of global environment variables that you can export and then import into the workspace as well. That way you have access to any of these that might be used throughout the collection as needed. You can have these set up here so they can be all set. I find I usually just use base URL, and then I need like an API token or the JOT from so if I do the video API JOT, something like that, I can come in and now I can actually grab the JOT token that Rahima was showing us all how to use. I can come in here and copy that and put that right into Postman. I can just set it as a current value, and then I can just come back and update that whenever I need to. Now I can use this inside the collection as authorization. So make sure to save that. That's one thing I often forget to do. Don't make my mistakes. So we have a, like if I were to list all sessions in an account, something like that, it would grab the base URL. I don't need the next page token right yet. And the dates from and to, I can customize these to be more recent. So we'll do 2024 dash, we'll do from 0101 to 24 1 19. So I can do that, and then that will tell me everything that was you can do live or not, to see what kind of session it was, if it was a live session, if it was ended, I think yes, past or live. So I can filter that out by current ones, or I can just uncheck that and well, I think I can actually do past. So okay, so then once I have that, then I got to go add the header for authorization, and we'll do there, and I'm going to use that video API JOT replacement string here. So this very environment variable here helps me, and I always miss. I don't know why that never works for me. Okay, so then if I hit send, okay, so now I got yeah, all kinds of stuff here. So I have ID. So here's a session, like all kinds of sessions going on. All right, so visualize, no, preview. None of these help. None of these actually help me right now. There it goes. That's what I was looking for. It didn't do it the first time. But once it updated, it split everything up. Okay, so now you can see actually how many sessions there were. 1, 2, 3. This is all like testing stuff, right? So but yeah, so it gives you all the information you have. You really, yeah, how long it was, the actual duration. Some of these you'll notice are like hours. Don't be like me. Close your browser when you step away. Otherwise your session just keeps going, and it's really embarrassing. See, this is more, realistic. So yeah, anyways, these are basically the kind of the data set you would get back from just general SDK API call here with Postman. So all right, so we had some like use cases, right?
Do.
So this one would help. Well, we were doing, let's see, walk me through one. What am I doing first?
So let's say I have a classroom, Kelly, and I want to see information about each user who was in my class.
Okay. So with that, what we'd want to do is I'm going to start a random session. It's just another test session here off screen. Hopefully that goes okay. And then I'm going to switch this to, instead of past, I want to do live. So back to params, switch this to live. Let's do just for today. Hit send and see if anything works. Okay, no session created. Fun. Well, let me make sure the sessions are getting created properly. Second.
And then what, just to re-emphasize what Kelly said, what he's doing is off on a different screen. He is just creating a session and then using that to be able to go ahead and get some session data from a live session. So just off screen, he is starting a session.
Okay, 1 second. Love when an app works earlier in the day and then doesn't later on. It's my favorite. Okay, so this is here. And then this one more time. All right, that worked well. Live debugging. It's awesome. Let's see if any of these actually got made. There we go. All right, so now I have a live session. Yay. I still know what I'm doing. Okay, so 2 users, right? Now I know which users those are. I don't have any information about them yet, but I believe I can do some other things with that. Is it right? I can come in here to the session. Now that I have the session ID, I can come in here, copy and paste into getting a session detail. Yeah, so let's go in, and in my session ID, I can update that to like to think I can. It keeps covering it up with the tooltip, so I'm not sure if I got it right. There we go. All right, so let's make sure that's good. Type live, yep, and then headers, authorization again. All right, so again, I'm in the get session details. And then we're going to look for this, whatever particular session you might have, which some of you may not actually have one running currently, but just kind of play along. And then if I hit send, that's going to give me just basically the same info. So I want to get the users. That's right. I want to list the session users. So let's go there.
And then we'll notice like everything on this side panel is sorted out for us, right? So Kelly just quickly went into the users folder and found the endpoint he wanted to use.
Okay, so page size, key, session ID, users. Yep, that all works out. And then I just want to get my authorization header in there. See, again, why does that not? And then if I hit space, it just doesn't like me. I have to just do it the hard way. Bearer, your API job, send. Now, okay, now I have a little bit more information. Now it's kind of generic because it's sort of just slapped together, So the name of this particular user is KJA, and it has an ID. It tells me where about they are, their IP address, if any other, connection type when I joined, all those sorts of things. And these each have their own, sorry, slowing down a little bit. So they each have their own unique identifier. which means I could, and when I'm actually creating those, I can pass in the specific ID for that user and that session when I create that jot, as opposed to just letting it kind of be generic. And what that will allow me to do then is I can associate this user, say if I'm in a classroom, this user now can get associated back to like the school system, right? So now what I'm doing is merging two different systems, the video in Zoom for online classroom, and then the ability to have like a sidebar and all the user information there for the professor to be able to open up and interact with that student directly, or learn more about who they are, learn more about their, previous grades, anything in their school, all sorts of things, right? Information that's probably useful during a classroom, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely one sort of path you can do once you have like a session running.
So Kelly, just to want to make sure I understand the use case you're explaining. So essentially somebody could use this ID that is pulled in from this endpoint, match this ID onto, let's say, a school database, and then automatically and dynamically render student information based on this ID.
Yeah, because each one of the students would have a specific user for this account. And then the database, and then this user, when they get created, everything sort of matches up, and then who's who.
That is that's really interesting. Let's see, it is the email, right? Not an ID. So Elvig, to make sure we're understanding your question correctly, it would be, in this case, we see that we have a user ID. That's a specific piece of information that we could use and link that to use that to link the user information.
If there's
database.
So if we go back to the API, and let's see. Well, let's go to here. Let's go to guides. Let me see if I can make sure I get the question right. And yeah, it would be, national system will not be known. Yeah, you would have to pass it. So you would have to, when you create, I guess it would actually be here, the credentials and the authorize. So in here, yeah, you would have to pass the user identity. Yeah, so the user identity would be one definite way. And then you could also use session key to map to, there's a lot of information stored in the jot. So you could use the session key to actually sort of match up to classroom specific by using specific fragments in the session keys. Then you can break those apart later, that kind of thing. So all sorts of stuff like that. But yeah, thanks for catching that. It's not the actual ID that comes back, but it would be the user. Sorry, the user identity. Okay. So yeah, what we can do is take the user identity here, match it up to the user identity in our system, whatever else that might be, and then use those two things together to be able to say this person can start new sessions, or this person can only join things, or whatever it is, right? So,
and Elvig, let us know if we answered your question correctly.
Does that make sense? Okay, all right. Yeah, sorry for that.
So Kelly, I have a question. If you want to, let's say you have this, classroom with your students, if you wanted to do some troubleshooting and look at, how data was being sent or received, is there an endpoint you can use for that?
Let's see how data was being. Yeah, so there is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, there's daily usage reports, which would help. And then we had where are you leading me? Which API am I leading to?
Yeah, so we could use the dashboard that
could use the dashboard.
And if I wanted to see like the quality of their service.
Oh yeah. So that would be the yeah, thanks. Let's see, where is the there's a QoS service, and where did that go? Let's see. All right, so in the API here, we can do get session. Oh, okay, it's under session. So under the session ID, and it is going to be, is it in here? It's got to be in here, right? Get session user and QoS users. Yeah, there it is. I know the folder structure. Okay, so getting the session user QoS and listing them. So there's some really cool things you could do with this, where you're going to be able to see sort of real time what those what that feedback might be. So let's have a look at this one here, and we can look at this session ID, and we'll grab one of the users. That is really annoying.
Yeah,
there we go. Sorry, the UI blown up doesn't work as well as it is when it's smaller. Okay, so then I'm going to grab this user ID here. I think I can do that. And the authorization. All right, so this tells me real time sort of the audio input, like bitrate, latency, any issues that might be going on. Currently, I don't actually have any video or audio running, so there's no like actual data coming out, but it would tell me everything about that particular user, which is really pretty interesting. And I think the use case, or at least one of them could be, is that you're having issues, right? You're in your classroom and you're having a problem. So you can click that button, which would then alert your system to make this call, get the data, and start to figure out what's happening, and if there's start to log some of that information as well to get a better feel for what might have been happening at that current time, like why, was the bit rate just low? Is it frame rate drops, whatever, right? So find out if it's something in your system, find out if it's something else. And then be able to sort of debug from there. Good tip, Johnny. Yeah. Thanks.
Yanni, our resident Postman guru, who actually worked very hard to get this workspace created. But yeah, to your point, Kelly, being able to kind of in real time debug. If anyone here has had any experience with virtual learning, especially during the pandemic, you can imagine how useful this could be. If you have children as young as 5 years old saying there's an issue, if they can simply click a button and we can have those issues logged out, it would save a whirlwind of tears on kids.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. All right. So what do we got next?
So let's say I am doing let's say I am live streaming or doing a virtual yoga class. I don't do yoga at all, but let's say I'm doing a virtual yoga class and I want to record my sessions, Kelly, and I want to just store those recordings and put them like in a bucket online. How could I do that? Or is that possible?
I think so. Okay, so let's look at you can get all the recordings in account, and you can do that by filtering the day, so you can know when that is. And this I don't actually have like recordings in my account, so that wouldn't be terribly helpful, but I will show you what that looks like. The response here.
And just real quick, when Kelly says he doesn't have recording on his account, just like QSS, recording is an add-on subscription. And again, we've gone over in past workshops how to get that added on, but that's what he meant, that when you don't have recording added onto your account, you won't be able to do recordings.
Which one is it? It's there it is. Sessions recordings. There it is. List recordings and account. All right, so here we go. Rate limited is it is a medium rate limit. And there's a label here, and it kind of goes through this. I'm going to put that right here. Good question. Wait a minute. All right. So the medium limit has 2 requests per second, 2,000 a day on the free, 20 per second on Pro, 60 per second on Business Plus.
Yeah, it's a good question, Elvic. And like Gianni
Yeah,
mentioned,
yeah.
there's a label for each
Yep.
endpoint right there, if you can see it.
Yeah. All right. So then in this request, what we're going to get back is essentially the files we'll need. So we'll have the ability to find the file, be able to get the file types, all that sort of thing, the download URL for that. And then when we want to if we want to take that and push that off to something else, we can take that download URL and then just sort of forward that on to something else to pull from that space, download the whole thing, and then, delete it off our server or whatever they need to do. If it's, if you need some sort of private server to, for compliance issues or something like that, you would have something like this to where you'd want to pull everything off ours, store it in an isolated thing, and remove everything on its own. So yeah, those are 3 really, really good, I think, starting use cases for the API, and hopefully gets everybody's imagination moving.
Yeah, they are. They're really good ones. And I just, you think of with some custom functionality written in and using these API endpoints, there's a lot that you can do and build with the video SDK. A lot of possibilities there. So yeah, it's definitely useful to go through, and this workspace is really helpful as well to be able to go through and test these endpoints and see what information we get back. And we get this this huge object return, but we can definitely take that data, sort through it, display the data in a table, in a graph. There are so many different ways that we can just work with the data, and display it within our application. So a lot of possibilities that come forward.
I have one more thing I want to show you too, and that is you do have access to the account API as well. That is not it. Where did my, there it is. That's one. So there's a account settings API. It's kind of hard. It's buried under meetings API. So you would see that, but that is actually also available with this Jot. So you would be able to go in and update security things on the account, anything you might need to do. So if you have maybe different levels of admins that you want to build a dashboard around, that would be the kind of thing you could do here to be able to turn things off and on and specify all those sorts of things as well. So there's a couple different endpoints. I went over the one that got all the recording. You'd probably just get that specific session, which would probably be the better way to do it. I sort of stopped short of that. They both sort of have the same files. It would just be one specific session at a time instead of getting all of them. You could do like one a day, if that's how you wanted to like batch them up or something like that.
Yeah, in a sense, like a playlist, right? So I mean, the way I'm thinking of it is, there are many times where I've started a meeting or a session if we're using the video SDK, and I've started recording. If I am, say, recording a demo for something, and I've stopped, and I'll start again. So I have multiple recordings within the same session, and this endpoint would allow me to look at just those recordings. But if I wanted to see everything I've did, on my account, then I would use a first endpoint that Kelly looked at.
Yeah, there's also single recordings, and so there's all kinds of different things you could do here. So yeah, that's it just kind of depends on the need of the app, I guess, and your use case specifically. But so back to the one last thing, hopefully the one last thing for me, and it's all this stuff, is available for you to update on the account. That way you can, like I said, use the 2 pieces together and have a sort of a separate dashboard in your application that can control some of these things, but maybe not give them access to all of it even. So that's kind of an option. But that's all part of that like Zoom One API set. So, and can a recurring session be set for future meetings also? I don't believe that is any API for the video SDK. I think that's a part of your app. Is that correct?
Yeah, if I'm understanding your question correctly, that would be some custom functionality you'd have to create to have a session, if we're understanding your question correctly.
Yeah, I think that would be right.
Yeah, so short answer, yes, it can. It would just take some customization on your end.
Yeah, you just kind of have a future session ID that you would make, something like that.
All right. So I know, Kelly, you were showing us one last thing, kind of going over the account.
Yeah. That was that. I think that's all I had from this side. If there's are there any other questions about any of this or any of the Postman stuff here, or any other endpoints? Or if not, I think we can just kind of move on and wrap it up. I don't know if the AI API will be weaved in, but it's always a possibility. Just haven't heard one way or another for sure.
Yeah, I believe you can do a feature request if you'd like to submit a feature request with that.
Yeah, we can also,
we can do that as well. Do feature request submissions. But this was a really good.
Right. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing now. That way we can kind of go back to the base. But yeah, thanks. Hopefully that was helpful.
All right, so make sure you all can see my presentation. I actually can't see you all anymore, but we'll just do a quick wrap up. So we went over the Video SDK API library. That is a mouthful to say, Vid SDK API library. But essentially kind of, how to use it, how to integrate it, and just an introduction to the number of possibilities that you have when working with these APIs. It really takes, the starting point of creating a video call application with the Video SDK and just kind of launches it to so many other possibilities or features that you can build out. So if you have any other questions when you are building with the Video SDK, please feel free to find us on the forum at devforum.zoom.us. You can post your questions within the Video SDK category. We also have some pieces written on our blog that go over working with the Video SDK as a whole. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us at any of those capacities, and we would love to help with whatever you're building, and we look forward to seeing whatever you're building. So don't forget to look out for the next workshop registration link. Be sure to sign up. And if you've missed any or you want to rewatch, you can find those on our developers YouTube channel. So that is it. That is all we have for today.
Yeah.
And if you
thank you, everyone. Yeah, thank you so much.